and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyaso tonight. About 24 hours after Senate's order, police returned Mace stolen from the upper legislative chamber. PDP insists action by alleged thugs should be treated as treason. Soldiers attacked Benue community allegedly in retaliation over the killing of their colleague, as police confirmed killing of 3 persons in Guma local government. Presidency clarifies President Buhari's statement, accusing some Nigerian youths of not wanting to do anything, as criticism trailed comments made in London. And Queen Elizabeth addresses leaders of the Commonwealth, asks them to allow Prince Charles to succeed her as the head of the group.
Business news tonight. Global financial institutions rally support for Nigeria's development bank establishment with a total $70 million commitment from EIB and AFDB.
Sports news tonight. Referees begin training with the video assistant referee technology ahead of the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia.
And from Abuja, African Land Forces Conference ends in the state's capital with a resolve for more partnership in combating security challenges on the continent.
We begin tonight from the National Assembly, where the police this morning returned the mace stolen from the Senate chamber on Wednesday. The police handed over the mace to the clerk of the National Assembly. The National Assembly had given the Inspector General of Police and the DSS Director General 24 hours to recover the mace after it was stolen.
The mace returns to the National Assembly after it was forcefully and dramatically snatched from the Senate chamber in the full glare of security agents at the National Assembly. The police hands over the mace to the clerk of the National Assembly. Following the embarrassment caused by the broad daylight snatching of the mace, the police and other security agencies increased security in the National Assembly. Inside the Senate chamber, Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu is pleased that the police has recovered the mace, but says it shouldn't end there.
It still beats the imagination of Nigerians and the civilized world that the attackers passed through the several security checks and barriers into National Assembly and in the recess of these chambers, and also escaped with the mess into the thin air, despite the well-known fortified surroundings of this parliament. Therefore, we hold that it will be a detour to the state of nature, where life was lawless and brutish, if what happened yesterday is allowed to go unpunished or to be swept under the carpet. It will never happen. We will get to the roots of this matter. We therefore call on the Inspector General of Police and the DGSS to ensure that all those who plotted, aided, abetted, and executed this dastardly affront on our democracy and belittled Nigeria before the international community must be brought to book to serve as a deterrent to others.
The Senate has also resolved to invite the Inspector General of Police and the Director General of the Department of State Services to appear before the upper chamber next week to explain how far they have gone in apprehending and prosecuting those who invaded the National Assembly. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, is calling on the federal government to ensure that all those involved who invaded the Senate and stole the mace are charged with treason. The national chairman of the PDP, Prince Uche Secondus, made the call at the opening session of the party's emergency National Executive Council meeting in Abuja. He also asked members to intensify efforts to seal a merger deal with other political parties and interest groups to wrest power from the All Progressives Congress in 2019. According to him, the party is consulting some former presidents who also agree that there's an urgent need for a new government to emerge next year.
What happened in the Senate yesterday is a clear assault on democracy. A coup on the legislature, and should not only be condemned but those responsible should be tried for treason as demanded by the law. This obnoxious development has placed enormous challenge on us as the main opposition party to up our game and quickly rescue this country from appalling APC administration. Our consultations have taken us to meet with various interest groups, former presidents of our country, leaders who have been in position of our country, have consistently called, and we have also moved as a working committee to them to consult with them. They are in unison. They are in unison to make sure that come 2019, that a fresh president and a new government is formed for the interest of our nation.
It's not the easiest thing in the world to walk into the Senate chamber during plenary, snatch the mace and leave with it. But the ease with which it happened on Wednesday is generating reactions, including that of a lawmaker, Senator Shehu Sani, who believes the action smacks of collusion and must be thoroughly investigated. Senator Sani, who spoke on our breakfast show Sunrise Daily, describes the incident as unfortunate and capable of undermining the nation's democracy.
What happened was simply an affront on democracy. It was an invasion. It was an attack on democracy. It is treasonable, and it must be treated as such. If you look at the whole thing, it's simply a poorly scripted Nollywood movie where you have some thugs invading the National Assembly, taking the mace and simply going away without anybody arresting them. Now, try as an individual to enter into the National Assembly and see the kind of security interrogations and check you face. But it's very clear.
Do you suspect collusion then?
Well, if it is not collusion, then what shall we call it? As far as I'm concerned, they went in and the security simply melted away. We don't have security as far as the National Assembly is concerned. We depend on the police and other secret security agencies that are all controlled by another arm of government. If we have our own security, that could not have happened.
Do you
implicating the executive?
Well, as far as I did not implicate the executive, all I said was that they came into the National Assembly freely, took the mace, and at ease they simply went out as if there is nobody.
In the meantime, the suspended Senator Ovie Omagege, who is accused of complicity in the rowdy session at the Senate on Wednesday, has obtained an interim order restraining the police, the Department of State Services and other law enforcement bodies from arresting him. The senator, who represents Delta Central in the National Assembly, allegedly stormed the Senate with unidentified persons who made away with the mace. But he has denied the allegation and denied being arrested by the police. Now let's take another look at all these developments. I'm being joined live from Abuja by a legal practitioner, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you, Joma. Thank you for having me.
Right, so the mace has now been found. The investigation continues. But how serious is this from a legal perspective? I mean, for someone to steal a mace legally now?
Right, no doubt it's an offense that is defined by law for which the punishment is prescribed. But I'm not sure that that act constitutes an act of treason. I'm sure that it has been exaggerated by the National Assembly, but it is a criminal offense. And to tell you that this looks more or less like a conspiracy, a man that was arrested yesterday for an act that is very, very despicable by today has already obtained an order stopping the law enforcement agencies from arresting him. In other words, he's in a way saying that this matter should be over. I have a problem with the way security situation is in the country and the way we even deal with scandals. It seems to me that the lifespan of scandal in Nigeria now is 2 weeks. The first time it breaks out, the media will cover it. Social media warriors will also express their displeasure. The first week will come and pass. By the second week, nobody cares about it. Nobody's talking about the Dino Melai wanted. Nobody's talking about Maina. Nobody's talking. There are quite a number of things. So the politicians have known that if you can endure the first week, by the second week, whatever scandal and whatever the nature and the crime is, nobody's going to talk about that anymore.
But
if we are serious as a nation, what has happened cannot even happen among Eskimos.
But if you got this interim injunction, interim order from a court, can you say that, you know, that he wants it over? Wasn't it looked at by competent members of the judiciary?
Yeah, an order of court is valid and subsisting until it is overturned. But what I'm talking about is if he was indeed arrested yesterday, that means presumably he could have been in custody throughout yesterday. And don't forget he was arrested sometime in the afternoon. So how did he get all the time to apply for an interim order? And when you bring an application like that, it must be followed by an affidavit where you depose to facts and support them with documents where necessary. So I'm looking at the limited time that he was able to put together, apply, and then secure an interim order, stopping the law enforcement agencies from doing what is lawful. Because what has happened yesterday, if not checked, it means that even the houses of assembly of states will begin to take, you know, or the queue, and we'll begin to see this kind of situation. I don't think no political party in this country should be able to tolerate that. What has happened is a sign. If we don't deal with it, then somebody is going to be the next one.
Okay, let me just ask you, what could be the intention of you know, because it hasn't been proved yet, so we can't say what was the senator's intention. For whoever is the sponsor of this, what could be their intention? Is it the politics of 2019 playing out? Or what would they achieve by just taking the Mace away? And then that was the end of it. What would they achieve by doing that?
Some of the facts that we read after that incident was that there was an attempt to have a proceedings for the reordering of the sequence of the Electoral Act, and that this act of the senator was an attempt to scuttle that. Whether that is right or wrong, it is bad. But to put it in context, Senator Omar Agoge may be right that in some way, not by his act, but the fact that he probably may not have been given fair hearing may have been dealt with unjustly by the Senate and by extension the Senate president, because he was to be suspended. He approached the court and was asked to apologize. When he apologized to the people, presumably you would have thought that he would be forgiven. They still went ahead and suspended him. So obviously one can say that
but is there anything in the rules
to be angry for what happened? But certainly you cannot take the laws into your hand.
Indeed, but is there anything in the rules that says once you have apologized, you are not allowed to be suspended? I mean, just looking at it from the perspective of the Senate now, if you're saying that he apologized and therefore, are you saying he should not have been suspended since he had apologized?
Well, the suspension is premised on the findings of the Ethics and Privileges Committee. And apart from the fact that he went out of the Senate building and out of the Senate plenary or chambers and expressed his displeasure on that day, there is no any other additional fact to be said that, that you can say are part of the community of offenses that he has committed. So it is actually not supposed to be a big deal. I believe that that was an unjust, even if the rule states that whether you apologize or not, you are going to be suspended, it may well be clear that some senators are quite not happy with the way he was taking up the case for the executive, and they decided to punish him.
All right,
but
so
whether
finally,
they did that rightly or wrongly, he has approached the court. He should have waited for the court to give a decision.
Finally, now, how do you think the Senate should deal with this, seeing that it's gone beyond being political to entering the realm of being legal? If anyone is found guilty, it's gone into being something criminal. How do you think they should deal with this in the end?
Well, my advice for the Senate, I would advise them to repent of their sins. They should stop dictatorship. They should allow due process of the law to prevail. And they should also cooperate with Nigerians by, for example, passing the budget. Because, to be honest with you, what the National Assembly members are doing, both whether Senate or House of Assembly, they have not been fair to Nigerians. And the good thing is that 2019 is at the door. Most of them are likely not going to come back.
All right. Thank you so very much, senior legal practitioner Daniel Bwala, for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks. And in part 2, after the break, appeal court in Ado-Ekiti freezes 2 bank accounts belonging to Ekiti State Governor Ayodele Fayose, vows to take case to the Supreme Court. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.